Real estate agents want to know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. And the idea behind a listing appointment can be very daunting. Most real estate agents get concerned because they don't want to go to this listing appointment and screw it up. They realize it's Eminem 8 Mile style. You get one shot, do not miss your chance, because you could only have one opportunity with the seller and they're going to make a decision on which real estate agent to go with. And when you show up to that listing appointment, you need to be on your game. You need to know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. So I'm gonna give you that essence, that flow, the dialogue diagram laid out here and how the listing appointment should go. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Number one, we're gonna start out by actually confirming the night before and the day of with the listing appointment. Make sure that you have that pre-listing questionnaire completed. If you don't, here's what I find out. If a seller is not serious enough to complete that pre-listing questionnaire, they're probably not serious enough to sell their property. There are some instances in which there might be multiple people as a part of the property, an overwhelmed seller who simply can't complete it. They're really, really bad with technology, or perhaps they just have an issue completing something or remembering it. Maybe it's an elderly couple who just needs some help, and you want to provide grace for that. And understand that in that case, you might not get that pre-listing questionnaire. However, just realize you're probably gonna go in blind and you might need to put those ranges of good, average, fair, and excellent condition for your valuation report. All right, so here's how it goes. You're gonna start by confirming that appointment. If you reschedule, make that happen, but you're the one that reschedules and locks in that time. Second, arrive on time. On time is early. It's perfectly on time, you're late. Show up to that appointment, knock on the door, step back a little bit from the door so you're not right in their face, and say, "Hi, this is David Brooke. We have an appointment for 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. Do you mind if I come in?" When you are presented with the opportunity to come in, again, you're asking permission to enter their home. This is their place where they live. You're gonna walk inside of the home. You're gonna look them straight in the face and say, "Thanks so much for having me over today. Should I take my shoes off or not?" What you're doing by this is you're actually communicating care for not only them, but also for their property. The reason for this is it may be your culture or not to take your shoes off as you enter into a property, but you are going to communicate to them that you care for the home. You're also going to care for their culture, even if that's not your own, to take your shoes off before entering into the property. This is the first step. When I was a kid, I was scared of a bee stinging me, but I remember my father told me, the bee is actually more scared of you than you are of it. And I was like, how could that be? And then eventually I realized as you swat a bee away, the bee moves. Why? Because it sees you as a bigger person, right? And so sellers, for the most part, are the same way. They're actually fearful of the appointment. They don't know how this goes. When you're walking into their home, they might not have sold a home before. They're not sure how the listing appointment is supposed to go. Do you walk right over to the dining room table and start talking about price, marketing plan, and commission? Do you walk around the property and see it first? What should you do? So here's my thoughts on how the flow should go. Number one, you want to walk into the property, you've asked them if you can take your shoes off, and then I say to them, "Hey, David, do you mind if you show me the property? I'd love to see it from your eyes and from the eyes of a buyer. Would you mind selling me the place? Who knows, I might buy it." And that little small, it could be the silliest joke in the world, seems to disarm people's expectations. They feel like you're there to listen and learn and potentially even buy the place yourself. You're gonna walk around the property, you're gonna say, "Would you mind if I take some notes?" By doing that, you can take out your cell phone and you can rightly take some notes about the property. And if, God forbid, you received a text or some sort of information, you'd be able to see that and have access to your phone without appearing rude. The next part to that process is as you walk into that first room, you're going to compliment the status or be interested in some sort of feature. Now, I would highly recommend that you take our class on how to show a home and also our other class on how a home works. By this, you're going to be able to rightly describe and more accurately describe and articulate different parts of a property. Meaning you're not just going to say, "Look how spacious this room is." You're not going to just say nice hardwood floors. You're going to be able to say, "Well, I see that there's red oak floors that have recently been stained that are installed here. I can see that you're probably looking at 8-foot, 9-foot, 10-foot ceilings in the property. I saw that there's Stafford trim along the doors. And by that, you're able to more accurately articulate the value of the property. They're gonna start to see that right away and feel comfortable. Your next step in the process, while you're taking notes for them, is to say, now do you mind if I make a few recommendations on how we can maximize the sale price of this property? People are undoubtedly going to say yes. What you're looking to do here as you walk around the property is you're actually looking to handle objections before they're presented. I need to make a clear note of this. If you're going to be an excellent real estate agent, you're going to need to handle objections before they actually get presented. Objections are simply hurdles in the process. They are not yets, not no's. They are not yets, not no's. So in this, if a seller says to you, I'm not gonna do anything else to this property, I've already put in enough money already, what they're likely saying is a number of things. Number one, I don't have the contractors to be able to do it. Number two, I'm not sure I have any liquid cash. Number three, I don't have time. Number four, I don't want to miss the timing of the market. Number five, I'm nervous that I put money in, I'm not going to get my money. This is what they're truly saying. So as we go and walk through the property, we're going to handle those objections before they come up. Our next step, as we're going to continue to walk around the property, we're going to ask them, do you mind if I make suggestions to the property in order to maximize the value? They're going to respond in a certain way and probably elicit, sure, of course, no problem, you can make suggestions. If you're going to take pictures of these specific items, because you won't be able to remember them, let them know that you're going to break down items into 3 different categories: A items, B items, and C items. A items are issues that would literally prevent the sale of the property or that would massively account for a discount in pricing. Some examples might be, I walked in and the ceiling was leaking. I walked into the basement and the foundation is crumbling. I walked in and I saw mold. There's an issue on the property where I can't gain access to the home because there's a tenant in place and we can't gain access. Number 5, I've got so many pets in the property that the odor of the animals is overwhelming, and so it's going to significantly discount the price. Those are A items. What are B items? B items are what are B items? B items are items that could significantly affect the sale of the property but are not necessary for us to accomplish. For instance, if you walked into the property and every property within the neighborhood is remodeled with bathrooms and kitchens that are updated and ours are not, and ours are older, they have dated style, we can take that massive discount for a condition appeal, or we can address those items and bring it up to value. It's not going to inhibit a sale. It's not detrimental in terms of, B items are not health and safety items. These are items that are more condition related and may impact the sale. For instance, an FHA requirement of having chipping paint on the property is likely a B item because it's going to eliminate some buyers for the buyer pool, but it's not going to inhibit your sale. It's just simply older. But by handling that chipping paint and clearing that out and painting those specific areas of chipping paint, you're likely going to reintroduce those FHA buyers into the market. The C item. C items are the third item on the list. These are recommendations. We recommend that you paint this room an agreeable gray color. We recommend that you paint this bathroom an October mist color. We recommend that you would refinish the floors in these areas. These will help your property to sell. Now, I need to be clear about a few different items when it comes to objections from sellers. Sellers typically have the objection of, I don't want to add any money into a property because I'm not going to get it back. They also have the objection of, I don't want to paint or add flooring like carpeting to a property because I don't know what the next buyer is going to want. Here's how to explain that. Number 1, we want to ask them this question. Would you like me to market the property to one person or to many people? They're going to say to many people. You're going to say, great, it only takes one buyer to buy your home, but I'd rather market it so I have more opportunities to sell it than to just that one individual. The reason is if I just try to sell it to that one individual, I don't have a lot of negotiation and leveraging power because they have the money and we have the house. And unless they are absolutely in love with this property and see no reason to disregard our price for any reason, we're gonna have a negotiation and that may discount the property. However, if I can market this to multiple people, now we have a greater chance to have more leverage over buyers and retain our list price or better. Would you like that? They will say yes. Great. Then we know that the most amount of people like these specific colors. If you can imagine a bell curve, the most amount of people like these types of carpet. If you can imagine a bell curve, these amount of people like a well cared for lawn. Those are the types of situations that you want to convey to them. If they're math oriented or they're an engineer type, you can kind of pick up where their mind is at. You can ask them, do you remember the bell curve from high school that we used to talk about? Standard deviations? Yeah, our color of pink is actually 3 deviations away. Our buyer color, that color is what's called buyer specific. Only specific buyers would like that color. However, the majority of buyers are going to like this color. And you need to think, is the buyer gonna walk in and think, I need to paint that right away? Even if they loved pink, they're going to move in and still be okay with a very, very commonly accepted color. However, the majority of people would paint the pink in order to get it to a majority accepted color. The next thing you need to realize to be able to communicate to your sellers how to deal with, I don't want to add anything into the property is this, or is this going to bring me more money? We already learned that up to date means it meets the market expectation. If we don't want these B items to pull us below market expectation, then what we're gonna need to do is clearly communicate what up to date means, updated. If the market expects granite countertops and we have laminate, by adding those granite countertops, now we've just simply matched market value. If we don't have that, then we're going to discount for the cost of those. That is called cost to cure. Now you have to ask yourself the question, from the buyer's perspective, if they saw 5 homes in a day and yours was the only home that did not have granite countertops, they may say, I like your layout better. I like that yours has, some more updated features. Or I might like your lot better, or the location might be a little bit better. And perhaps as they're equating in all of these factors, roughly your property and several others are around the same price. But they realize that they're gonna want granite countertops. Why do they feel that way? It's not just the buyer perception for want and desire, it's that the market is telling them that at their price point, that's typical. They've already seen 4 other homes and they've seen granite countertops in every single one of them. A seller's more firm position may be, well, if they want my property, then they can put their own granite countertops in at their own expense. Or the experience could be, I realize that all these buyers are going to look at it, they will likely discount for the cost of that in their offer price. But here's the thing, buyers are going to include not only the cost of it, but they're also going to include what's called entrepreneurial incentive. This is, I took the risk to put this in, I want to make sure that I'm actually making money on the property. You see, if there was an opportunity for someone to buy a fixed up property at $250,000 or a property that needs renovation at $200,000, that disparity of $50,000, if it costs $50,000 to fix up, they may say, I don't want to spend the time, I don't want to spend the risk, I don't know what I'm going to run into, it's not worth it for me, I need to buy the property at $175 or $150 in order to put the 50 in, and I'm going to make that extra disparity to feel like I actually got something out of it. The next thing we need to realize is this. If it costs $5,000 for new granite countertops, some buyers may think it costs $4, some may think it costs $6, but there's many buyers who may think it costs $8 or $9 or $10. And what they'll do is they'll discount your property by that amount, rather than if you solve the problem and it truly only costs you $5,000. Now, in the event that a seller says to you, I don't care, I'm not adding another dollar into the property, the response should be absolutely no problem. There is a price for that. Are you looking for more discounted offers, or are you looking for an as-is sale price? That will typically trigger in somebody's mind, oh, wait a second. If I'm not gonna do anything, then there's likely this investor sort of attitude, a discount attitude. And I'll just say, if you don't mind, I'm gonna give you a couple ranges. I'd love to give you options, and you can certainly choose whichever option and pricing model works best for you. Now, I wanna be clear about this. When you're walking around the property, instead of just simply being on your phone and taking notes or maybe taking just a couple of pictures, you need to be fully engaged. People do business with those who they know, like, and trust. And this is your opportunity while you're walking around the property to build rapport. Everything we're recommending here in these training videos is designed to be strategic and cumulative so that you have the best experience and the client does as well. This opportunity to walk around the property gives you that time to build that trust and rapport with them. Ask them questions as you go throughout the house. How long have you lived here? And what do you love most about this house? What do you love most about this neighborhood? And where your kids live, raised here, and where were their rooms? You want to really try to get to know them, because they're likely going to say, really my kids were lived here and I miss them so much. They live in, another part of the country or another part of the state. Oh, really? Is that why we're moving? Yes, I want to move near them. What would it do for you if you did sell your house? Great. What if we sold your house quick? Would that be helpful? Yes, absolutely. You're going to get more information than if you're really just focused or more clinical about the process of just delivering a value. Try to get out of the valuation mindset and get into the connection mindset with them. Realize that as you're walking through the home, they're likely going to have some concerns and objections. That's okay. That's their brain just telling them, I'm scared of this change. I'm moving from my nest and I don't know where I'm going, or I'm nervous about making that move. Focus on that process of making them feel comfortable and building rapport. This is where you have the opportunity to mirror and match. If you're saying to them, I'm really excited about this property, and they start vibing back and forth, they're like, yeah, we're really excited about this as well. Now you're relating to them. If, however, they're very engineer style and they're looking for more data driven, you can say, well, I've actually analyzed a lot of the properties in the neighborhood. I've shown most of these properties in the neighborhood, and they all appear to have, shorter ceilings than yours. I'm very excited about your high ceilings here. And, I can see as well that many of these homes have updated appliances, and yours are as well. But I am noticing that in their backyards, theirs are fenced and yours is not. It's just something you might want to consider. And so those are data points that you can build rapport, relate to them on whatever personality type that they have. Lastly, I can't encourage you enough to take charge. Be at the helm of this listing presentation. I'll many times turn to the client as we're walking through a few aspects of the home. We might get to the primary bedroom at some point. I'll just say, guys, I notice here that the color in this room is a little bit different. You probably realize right now I'm not like most real estate agents. I'm very much stepping into the leadership position here. You're hiring me to get a job done. And so if it's okay with you, I'm just gonna tell you the truth, no matter if it feels comfortable or not. I'd love to see us paint the room. I've got a contractor who can do this. As we eventually get down to listing the property, I'd love to contact you in with those people. I'll manage this from start to finish for you. Man, I'll tell you, when we do that, many customers can feel that confidence from the start. They feel, and even if you haven't sold a property yet, having that list of contractors there allows them to feel, wow, this person's really connected, and this person is gonna take charge and leadership. Now, I always tell them that pricing is a partnership, right? I can't force anyone to buy your property for a certain price, and we can certainly set that pricing there together. But I'm gonna give them that aspect of partnership, but also letting know here's the leadership. So it's partnership and it's leadership together that we're communicating. Now let's go back to the flow of the property. I'm gonna start in that lower level. I'm gonna walk through, I'm gonna try get to the kitchen. I'm gonna get that sort of sense of where buyers might be vibing or not vibing with the tour. Here's where we should walk through. I'd recommend that we move this furniture over here. I'm not a stager, but I'm certainly gonna provide a home prep specialist or a stager to come through, and I'm explaining that process if I'm deciding to offer that. I'm alluding to my marketing plan. Wow, what a great backyard. It's gonna look so good when I put the drone up there and we get our guy to kind of loop around the property for the video. If I'm deciding I'm doing that, that's alluding to my marketing plan. By the time I get to the primary bedrooms upstairs, I'm gonna tell them, man, I really see that the buyers these days are gonna love this sort of property. Let's go down into that lower level. Let's go down, look at those mechanicals. Go down to the lower level, take a picture of those serial numbers. Go back, say, I'm gonna do some research on these. I'm gonna provide the buyer with confidence that these are in great shape. If they need to be serviced, recommend servicing. All your recommendations, you're gonna let them know. I'm gonna draft up a report for you. No one else is doing this. You're gonna be the one where they're like, this person's in command. At the end of the tour for the whole property, inside, outside, etc., here's what you're gonna say. Mr. Buyer and Seller, here's what you're gonna say. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, most sellers ask these 4 questions. What is my property worth? How long is it going to take to sell? What do I need to do in order to prep the property for sale? What am I gonna walk away with at the end of the day? Now, we've actually conquered one of these today so far, which is what do I need to do in order to sell it? What do I need to do in order to get ready to sell? We're gonna have my home prep specialist or my stager come back and they're gonna evaluate again with you here. But do you mind if we go back to your dining room table, to your kitchen counter, to wherever it is, and talk that through of those other 3 items? Would that be okay with you? They're gonna say yes. As you're walking back to the dining room table, wherever you're gonna meet, go to the Starbucks if it's a tenant-owned, tenant-occupied property, that's where you're gonna ask them, do you have some Wi-Fi, do you have whatever, so I can get on and explain this to you. I'm gonna show you from my computer a few different things. Number 1, I'm gonna show you the market. Number 2, I'm gonna talk to you about the value for your property here. Number 3, I'm gonna talk about our marketing plan that we can do in order to get your property sold. And number 4, I'm gonna answer all those major questions. Would that be helpful for you? That's the second time in which they're gonna say yes. Now, I can't be more clear about this. What we are looking for throughout the process of selling homes, buyers or sellers, are what are called mini closes. We all remember the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, in which the guy would say, always be closing. But the reality is with real estate agents, we think of that as, would you like to buy the house? Would you like to sell the house with me? Sign on the dotted line, right? Press hard 3 copies. But the reality is this, all of those large closes are made up from what I call mini closes. It's them saying yes and yes and yes and yes, over to you, over to you, over to you. So when you're asking them, would that be valuable to you? It's yes, that would be valuable. Would that be helpful? Yes, it would be helpful. Would you like me to present you with options? Yes, I'd like you. It's yes, 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 yes. So by the time you actually get to, so let's list this property for $250,000. It's yes, David, that sounds good. Now, once we actually get back to the dining room table, this is where you're gonna open up your computer and you're gonna say, listen, all of the news stations are gonna tell you a different style of news. They're gonna tell you either the market's crashing or the market's on fire. They're gonna tell you what's popular to hear, but what they're likely not going to do is show you the data for themselves for a long period of time. They're there just for your eyeballs for 10 seconds. Would you mind if I showed you the data directly from the MLS? That way we're both on the same page. We may have read different documents before for articles, we may have watched different news stations, but if we both get on the same page from the MLS of where we'd actually sell your home, that's gonna be the most helpful. Would you mind if we did that? They're gonna be okay with that. We're gonna open up our computer, we're gonna walk through a few different areas. We're gonna walk through the sale prices and what's happened over the last 24 months. We're gonna walk through the supply. We're gonna walk through the days on market. And we're gonna walk through the number of sales. That way people can see, are our sales increasing? Do we have good inventory? How long are these properties taking to sell? And where are sale prices for maybe my state or my county? After that, we're gonna move into looking at their town specifically. If a buyer was presented and said, I wanted to live in anywhere USA, and they said, I'm looking for a property priced between $500,000 and $600,000 that has 4 beds, 3 bathrooms, or somewhere around in that range fits in my budget. Where would they look? Would they look in the whole town? Would they look in just a couple of neighborhoods? We're gonna already select those neighborhoods and we're gonna walk them through the absorption rates and the exposure times, sale price to list price ratios, price per square foot, days on market. We're gonna find those main statistics and we're gonna put that for their specific area. Now, why do we do this? It's simply because we're going to handle these objections ahead of time before they show up. If we can show them that the market only produces 2 sales a year, I've gone to listing appointments like this. Sorry, sir, it's a $2 million house, and in this neighborhood, only 2 of those types of homes sell every single year. And so we have, easily, we're gonna look at a 12-month contract. Easily, it's gonna take us 6 months to likely get a bite on the house. I'm gonna work to do this, but I'm going back to the numbers every single time. It's all about the principle and the actual numbers than it is about the personality. Personality relates us and allows them to say, okay, I'm feeling what they're saying, I feel comfortable, but the data is gonna really drive the point home. After that, I'm gonna show them, again, this data. I'm gonna look at the closed sales for the last 365 days. If there's 120 sales, I'm gonna divide that by 12, meaning every single month, and it looks like 10 homes are selling every single month. Then I'm going to look at under contract properties. If there are 12 under contract properties and it takes about 2 months to close a home on average, I'm gonna suggest there are 6 homes going under contract for the past 2 months. That tells us our current market. I'm gonna say it looks like that current market is actually a little bit slower than if you annualized all the sales. Perhaps all the sales are happening in the spring and summer and nothing in the fall and the winter, or very few, half the amount. We're then gonna look at the number of active properties that are on the market at any one time, specifically right now. And if there's only 3 properties on the market, I'm gonna say good news. As much as the market is cooling because there's not as many sales, it looks like there's only 3 homes on the market for us to look at. Let's look at these 3 homes, and I'll pull up those 3 homes. We'll look at them. Maybe one of them's been on the market for 120 days, and maybe 2 of them are brand new. And so I'll suggest to them, it looks like 6 properties a month are getting absorbed, and there's only 2 available for sale, which is good news for you, because by the time we hit the property, there may be which is good news for you, because by the time we hit the market, we may have the opportunity for another 2 properties to come to market and ours. We're gonna get absorbed pretty quickly. Once I've completed that step, my next step is this. I'm gonna select all of those properties and I'm gonna go and pull them together in a big, large statistic. Sorry. So once, here's the next step. After I've gone through each one of those closed, under contract, and then into active listings, I'm gonna keep them all selected in my MLS. I'm gonna go to the statistics area and I'm gonna pull up a sheet. And this will be different in every MLS, but they all have this sort of functionality. I'm gonna look at the data. If there's 120 sales and 12 that are under contract and 3 that are on the market, I'm gonna pull them all into a large statistics sheet. I'm gonna then find out, okay, what's the sale to list price ratio and what are the days on market for these 2? And here's my scripting. Number 1, I'm gonna look at the sale to list price ratio, and typically it will show some sort of data suggesting that some houses sell over the list price. The other will show that some houses sell under the list price on a list to sale price ratio. For example, it may say 110% is the max, so that's a property that did sell 10% over market, and then what's average is 100% of list to sale price or 98% list to sale price ratio, and then on the low side, some guy sold at 85% list to sale price ratio. This is how I explain it. Number 1, hey, Mr. Seller, it's actually really good news for you, because in this market, there are a number of buyers. And if list price is a strategy, which it is, then it's very hard to underprice your property. Meaning if you put your home on the market and a number of buyers come in, they're going to ask their real estate agent, instead of what could I get this property for, they're gonna reframe the question and gonna ask, what will this property go for? In that regard, the real estate agent is going to pull other comparable sales in the area and give them that top end range for where value should be. And if they want to beat that, knowing that the market's moving there or knowing that they're competing against other buyers, they may bid over. So in this regard, list price is a strategy. I cannot stress this enough. List price is a strategy. If you want to bring in more buyers, you drop your price. If you want to strategically try to wait for others to come through and to negotiate and to drop and to drop and to drop, price it high. Our next step is to say, well, on average or median, people are generally selling between their asking price and potentially 2% less than that. And I'll explain to you why. That's simply because of timing. Either they're doing exactly what they need to do and meeting the market's expectation of granite countertops, of gray paints, of whatever it is that brings them to market expectation, and properly priced with the recommendation of a real estate pro, or they're pricing slightly over that, and that's why they're selling under their list price. Lastly, we definitely don't want to be like some of those knuckleheads out there that are still trying to price really high, budget in for inspection issues, budget in for some price drops, budget in to get beat up on negotiation. They're trying to actually play defensively when in reality, they actually sell for less money. If that's the case, we definitely want to avoid that, because that's going to discount your home, and you don't want to do that, right, Mr. Seller? And then they're going to think, oh goodness, I was gonna price my house high. You've actually overcome the objection before it's been presented. It's at this point that you wanna suggest to your seller. Now, typically what I'm doing is I'm looking at the market value for the property, and I'm pricing potentially 1% to 2% below that in order to elicit as many buyers as possible. At this point in the conversation, I typically go over to a showing time report where I'm actually able to see how many buyers are generally in the market. I go to a target market analysis report, and I look within a specific price range of a specific town to see how many buyers are going through and how many showings are happening for each listing. That will generally give me a sense, is it 14 showings per home? Is it 20 showings per home? Somewhere within there is the number of buyers that are likely gonna book showings on a similar property. I'm then gonna communicate that over to the seller and let them know, Not only do I, but some people from our team actually have some buyers that might be within that price point, which is highly likely to be true. Again, please only say that if it is true. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go from our sale to list price ratio and I'm going to go over to days on market. And here's how I'm going to tackle another objection. Mr. Seller, it looks like some properties are selling within a weekend. It also looks like some people overpriced their home. They budgeted in for inspection items and market pricing and all these other things and ended up taking 200 days to sell. I know that's not you. We wanted to get you to another state so that you can be with your kids, and we probably don't want to wait 200 days. And on top of that, if a property was on market 200 days, would you pay the list price? No, I certainly wouldn't. Great, so we're definitely not going to do that. But if we knew that a property was on market, was in good condition, and there was lots of other buyers who wanted the property, we'd know, I want what other people want as well, we'd probably pay their price or better. So we're likely gonna look towards that angle. If we do that, we can see that on average, on median, people are taking around 2 weeks in order to close their property. So let's talk about our contract length. I actually only need a few different time frames lined up and added together in order to establish our contract. Would you mind if I explain that? They're going to say yes. Great. It should take me only a couple of days to get my home prep or a stager through the property, get our photographer scheduled once you complete any of these items, get the property listed for sale. Let's call this about a week. It'll then take us about a week to get preparations done for our home, our open house. It should then take us about a week for preparations for the open house, and we'll allow showings during that time frame. And then after the open house, we should have offers within a couple of days. So really, I only need, let's call this 30 days, plus the time it takes to get my property closed, which should be about another 60 days. So our contract time frame should only be 90 days. Don't you see how that works? Our contract should only be about 90 days. Now, many real estate agents will want a longer contract, but my data always suggests, I only make my contract for as long as it needs to be. Doesn't that seem fair? Once again, they're gonna respond, yes, that seems fair. That's a mini close once again. After presenting the clients with the data points, what do we do next? Next, we're gonna move into a few comparables that other buyers would have considered if they were on the market and the subject property was on the market at the same time. We're gonna communicate that over to the seller. Mr. Seller, we know that there's no perfect comparable out there unless the property was directly next door, has the same amount of amenities as yours, and sold yesterday. Then it would be a great comparable. However, even in that scenario, real estate by definition is unique, and that lot may be just a little bit left or right to the property and just not as good as yours. And so in that instance, what we're gonna do is we're gonna instead look at properties that a buyer in the market, because that's what we're looking for to determine a market, what buyers are willing to pay, what buyers have already purchased homes that have been on the market. And would those buyers tour those properties and yours on the same day if your home is on the market at that time? And that is gonna tell for us what comparable sales are applicable. We call those comparable sales comps. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you 4 comps at a minimum. And those comps are gonna tell you a few things. Number 1, 3 comps that have actually sold and 1 comp that is on the market right now, which would be in competition to your own. And by that, I'm gonna make adjustments in between the differences in bedroom counts, size of the home, the number of fireplaces, the size of the backyard, the amount of finished basement area, porches, patios, decks. I'm gonna adjust for all of those, including some really, really large factors such as the condition appeal of the property and the location appeal of the property. And when I do that, I'm gonna show you what that property sold for, the amount of adjustments I had to make, and what the indicated market value for your property should be. So for instance, if there was a property with 3 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms, and your home has 3 full bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms, I'm gonna make the adjustment for the differences in between. How I do that? I'm in touch with the local real estate appraisers all the time, and they're helping me understand, along with my own experience, what the difference is that a buyer would pay. We're gonna walk you through this over the next few minutes, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna present a printed report for you, and I'm gonna also have my computer here. We're gonna look at the interior of these properties, and rather than kind of telling you what your property should sell for, in partnership together, we're gonna review what these comparables sold for. We're gonna start to see a range of values here, and we're gonna price within that range based upon the condition of your home and the other homes. How does that sound? They're gonna be like, great. Or they might say, No, there's no comp like my own. In which case we have to say, well, we do have to work with what's available here in order to determine a range. And then we're gonna start walking through in a selected cart, likely on our MLS, all of the properties that have been applicable. And we're gonna go through and say, do you notice the type of flooring that they have? Do you notice the layouts of their kitchens? Do you notice what colors they painted their home? Do you see how they're presenting it in terms of marketing and photography? Would ours be better, superior to theirs? How can we actually accentuate? And by that, we're gonna start to overcome objections about marketing. We're gonna start to overcome objections about condition appeal, everything, and talk about location as we go through those comparables. So what happens next? Now we've walked through a number of properties, probably around 4 to 6 homes, and we've determined a range of values. We can take the approach of fair, average, good, and excellent in terms of where their condition of their property is at. My suggestion is go back to our training on bracketing and select something that is superior and say, listen, we love to get this value for you at $600,000, but those properties have, pools in the backyard with extensive patios. Our property is probably closer to the $500,000 range, although it's similar in condition inside, it doesn't have those outside features, and you can show them specifically why. Given that, where do you see your value range? And what we're gonna focus on is a range. Why? Because we don't wanna tell the customer that it's worth exactly $450,000 and it sells for $449,000 and then they get upset. I've had that happen. What we actually wanna do is provide a range. Why? Because they may choose, I'm gonna paint all those 3 rooms, but I'm not gonna paint that 4th room. I'm gonna get, the property landscape, but I'm not gonna actually hire a professional stager in order to, go through the property. So in all those instances, there's a range. There's also the range that we might have a number of buyers that happen to come to the market that we don't know about because they're through other brokers over the last week. Maybe rates drop a little bit earlier in the week. Perhaps a number of the competition ends up selling and now you're the only property on the market. And so you have a great opportunity to sell at a higher pace. So in all those instances, that's why we have this range. I typically say 2% plus or minus. And that actually does give you a decent range. At $500,000, that's giving you a range for yourself of 10 grand in either direction that it could sell. Now that might seem like a big range, but it also is gonna tell you there's a lot of flex here. We need to do everything we need to in order to get the property market showcase the best. I would not recommend you not doing these items. And if the property does go to market and they don't take those items of recommendation, you can easily review back to this range, and you can actually review back to any staging checklist or any checklist that you had at the beginning for items of recommendation for repair. Once you've completed the full valuation, here's the next step in the process. You're going to want to show them not only that range, but also, hey, do you want to see what you'd walk away with at the end of the day? Do you want to see your walkaway numbers? And in this, we have a seller net sheet. You can certainly download this, which has not only the purchase price of the property, any seller concessions that may be typical for the market, what their mortgage is or other liens associated with it, conveyance taxes or attorney title fees if applicable. We also include an admin fee for our team if applicable for your area. We also include any pre-listing costs and any inspection costs that are typical. So if in your market it's typical to spend around 1% on inspection items, you might want to budget that in. If you are recommending $8,000 worth of repairs, we bring that in to give them an actual net at the end of the day. Why this is so important is you may want to suggest to them, if you do these items which I'm recommending, you'll probably spend $8,000, but instead of selling for $500, you'll actually sell for $525,000 within that range. And they might say, oh, okay, we can generally see the delta. If you say, if you don't do these items, in fact, we're probably not going to sell at $500, we might sell at $490 plus or minus, and they could start to see the disparity in the range of value. Now that they've seen the actual walkaway numbers, they're generally going to start to think in the back of their mind, do I want to take this number and will that satisfy my goals? And some sellers will actually try to fit their goals, their financial goals, into the actual sale price. And so again, they don't sell real estate every day. They might say, well, I want to have $100,000 in the bank and I'm going to need $50,000 on my down payment, but you're telling me I'm going to walk with $130,000. So let's try to squeeze another $20,000 out of the house, and you'll suggest a listing for $20,000 higher in hopes. That's why we, at the start, wrote down all those items of recommendation, look through the comps correctly, and then we can now relate it back to that process. We're handling that objection again if needs be. Now, if they've decided and said, you know what, I can see how reasonable that is, or if they decide to discuss on commission, go back over to the marketing plan that you've already talked about, or show them those differences of where their value is, right? The next thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna actually bring that back from their walkaway numbers and lead into disclosures. So from disclosures, you're gonna start to talk about, here's what we're gonna need, whether we got the listing to the market today or tomorrow, we're gonna need to do these disclosures anyways. Start to walk through those disclosures, and at the end, you're gonna finalize with the exclusive right to sell agreement. That's gonna have everything listed out. By the time you get to the exclusive sell agreement, what you're gonna say is, now I wanna talk about my marketing plan. That's where you're gonna talk about your marketing plan and hit them with the 6, 7%, whatever you've decided to charge. Now they've heard about that marketing plan. You alluded to the marketing plan before. You went over the cost of their marketing beforehand, but you can insert this marketing plan right now at the exclusive right, or if you wanted to sooner and you knew that they were gonna be price conscious, before you got into the walkaway numbers, you say, look, as I draft this up, let me talk to you about our marketing plan and go through all the items that you address. In either case, both are applicable depending their vibe on the situation. If they're very excited to sell, you know that you're beating their expectations on price and everything else, then you can include it a little bit later. The reason for including it later is they may already have the decision with you. We're going with you, we're gonna list the property with you, and you're just gonna touch on a few of the marketing needs. That way, in the event that there was ever a little bit of a hiccup or a delay in closing the property, you could always say, well, I did go over this before. So that's when you're gonna talk about marketing, and then you're gonna talk about commission, about how you actually sell, and talk about agency there. Typical agency of you representing them, buyer, seller agency, talk to them about dual agency, and talk to them about designated agency, all depending on what's applicable within your state. Let's talk about tact. Now, tact is one of those words that maybe somebody told you a long time ago. It's like when to say things, it's like knowing that moment, it's also like reading the room. And sometimes it's very difficult to talk about certain situations, especially when people are selling real estate. Now, the reason is that because 70% of real estate transactions actually happen because of something negative. Let's think about it. Death in the family, loss of a job, parent passes away, divorces, foreclosures, short sales, tax issues, sickness. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's not very fun. So when you start to talk about, well, I'm gonna charge you 6% and I might make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 here, and they're the ones who are thinking, I'm gonna actually have to bring money to the closing, or I'm going to have to pull from my 401k, or my family members just died and we barely have any money in the estate, or any of these scenarios, you wanna incorporate tact. Now, I can't teach tact through a training video, but what I can say is be sensitive of the fact that others are going through a hard time in their lives right now. And so you don't need to reduce your commission in order for the situation. You don't need to try to comfort them and list their property higher in order to help get more money for the house, because you know that it's not gonna sell for that. You need to think for yourself. I am a real estate professional. I have been trained in order to get this job done. I am a confident and confident agent who is going to maintain my cool, be calm and steady even when they are not, and I'm going to get this job done for them so that they can be happier in the long run, rather than me tell them something in the short run just to make them happy right now. Okay, so we're right at the end of the process. Now it's time for them to sign that listing agreement. They sign it, and here's the situations of what could happen. Number one, if you decide to get up right from the table, thanks so much guys, you sign the listing document and you're out, they're gonna be like, okay, well, what happens next? The best way you can lead in business is by setting the expectations. So here's what's gonna happen tomorrow, here's what's gonna happen the next day. My marketing plan says the next 30 days looks like this. In our situation, we have a full-time listing coordinator on staff. I'll let them know. Our listing coordinator is gonna call you tomorrow. She's gonna set up your home prep appointment. She's then gonna set up your staging a day, and she's gonna call you that day to confirm. She's also gonna set up your photography appointment. She'll call that day to confirm. I'm gonna be in the loop, but really she runs the show all the way up to our listing date. And then I'll start to itemize everything that's happening from now till the day that we actually get on market. They're gonna feel really comfortable about that. If you have an assistant, if you have a listing coordinator, you might wanna loop them in on a group text or a group email so everyone's on the same page. In the morning, send them a recap along with the photos that you took and the recommendations. include all of your listing documentation so that they have copies of it as well. The bottom line is this: set the expectations moving forward so that they know when you get up from that dining room table, they know the next steps that are going to happen in the process. Hey, if that was a helpful video, keep watching for more content that I produce every single week about how to accelerate your career as a real estate agent or how to grow a profitable real estate team.